All right, Adam Bittner, formerly with the Collegian, now with the Post-Gazette, now joins us. Adam, Happy New Year to you. Great to hear from you.
Happy New Year, Steve. Good to talk to you, too.
All right. Okay, so last year at this time, the Steelers were getting ready for the Ravens. People weren't sure about Le'Veon Bell, but they were very, very happy with Josh Harris. This year, D'Angelo Williams. Steeler fans are very, very happy. I can tell you, I watched Fitz Tucson for 3 years. You shouldn't be happy. So what is the situation with that right now, and what does it do to the Steelers if Williams can't play?
Well, I think last season, the drop off from Le'Veon Bell to Josh Harris and Ben Tate, who had been sitting out on the street, the week before that game, was a lot more stark than maybe the drop off between Williams and Toussaint or Jordan Todman. Obviously, it's still a significant drop off, and in a game of this magnitude, it might be trivial, the difference, but I think Le'Veon Bell adds dimensions to the Steelers' passing game that Williams hasn't most of the season.
Right. Yeah.
He's very professional, in how he goes about everything from picking up blocking and that type of thing, and he's been a very valuable player. But I'm not sure it necessarily changes what the Steelers would be wanting to do in terms of the personnel that they have. It's more a question of whether Toussaint and Todman can execute that, but I would think that they could keep the playbook pretty similar, although they might be looking to pass a little bit more than they might normally.
Why has Ben Roethlisberger been a tick off the last couple of games?
There's been a lot of talk recently about Martavis Bryant and the way things have been going with him. Both Roethlisberger and Antonio Brown have kind of criticized the way he's been going about his business. And when you're without Le'Veon Bell and when you're without a guy like Martavis Bryant who can take the top off the defense, run deep and open up that space underneath for guys like Brown and Marcus Wheaton, that changes the offense significantly. And if they can get that option back, I think you can see Roethlisberger having more space to operate with underneath. So I think some of it's on Roethlisberger for making some really bad throws in some of these cases. But I think he's also lost a little bit of confidence in his receivers and has changed his options a little bit, from where they were earlier in the season.
Defensively, that's the scary part for the Steelers all season long. What do you like about the Pittsburgh defense, Adam, and what still concerns you about them?
Well, I think this defense has thrived this season by forcing turnovers, and when they can do that, they can number one, take points off the board, by the other team. This week we saw James Harrison get an important pick, near the end zone, that took points off the board for the Browns, and that those ended up being important. So I think when they do that, obviously that prevents the other team from scoring. When they don't get those turnovers, they're really a pretty average and even sometimes below average defense, just in terms of giving up yards and giving up real estate. So I think, it's going to be important for that defense, like they did in Cincinnati the last time, to force some big turnovers, to make some big plays, to cover for the fact that, in terms of coverage and actually defending the space, on the field, they probably aren't that great.
Usually when you get into a situation like this with a backup quarterback, which is what Cincinnati will have, Andy Dalton's not starting the game. Okay, let's be realistic here. It'll be 27 days. And 4 days since he had the cast off of the thumb? A.J. McCarron's going to start and play. Usually you look at a backup quarterback and say, look, just don't lose the game for us. We'll find other ways to win it, but don't you lose it for us. Is that pretty much how much does that play into what the Steelers want to do?
I think that's definitely something that they will be looking to do to capitalize that as much as they can. Because McCarron did move the ball when he was in the game, a few weeks ago. But they did force him into some dreadful decisions that cost him dearly. The Mike Mitchell interception William Gay interception where he returned it for a touchdown and then spent the next 15 minutes celebrating. That was a game-changing moment. So, I think that's, if you can get one of those plays, it really, it really negates a lot of the good that McCarron can do as a backup quarterback.
In fact, it should be pointed out, I think the only 2 interceptions he threw were in that first game. I don't think McCarron threw an interception after that. Yes, he had the fumble against Denver in overtime, but I don't think he's thrown a pick since.
I'm not sure about that, but
I'm pretty sure that Ben Roethlisberger also has not won a playoff game in 5 years as the starting quarterback. I don't think a lot of people realize that the AFC Championship game, when they won and then went on to Dallas, to Arlington to play Green Bay in the Super Bowl that long ago, that's the last playoff game he started and won. It's not exactly a sterling record of late.
I mean, people have, the Bengals have been much maligned for their playoff performance recently. Andy Dalton has looked good in the regular season at times and has not looked that way, in the postseason. But as you mentioned, in that same time period, the Steelers have similarly struggled. You think back to the Tim Tebow game. You think back to last season. Those are some real stinkers that the Steelers have put up in that same time period.
All right, keys to this game. What are a couple things that you will look at least initially, that you'll say, if this happens or if that happens, it swings the game one way or the other?
Like I said, I think the defense, forcing some turnovers, forcing maybe especially some turnovers from McCarron, that'll be a huge key. I think offensively, I'll be looking at Martavis Bryant and can he get the faith of Roethlisberger back this week in practice to the point that all of that is clicking in the passing game? Because if Williams can't go, the Steelers are going to need him to be able to take that top off the defense and open up that space and help that passing game be at its best. Because if it's not, and the running game's definitely not at its best, then what offense do you have left? So I think he is the big key. I also am looking for Antonio Brown to play a little bit better. I think that has something to do with Bryant, but in both games against Cincinnati this season, they've done a pretty good job of keeping him in check. So I'm looking to see what kind of adjustments he makes to his game and what kind of adjustments Todd Haley makes in his play calling to get Brown more involved.
I want to ask you about the Antonio Brown deal. He's special. There's no question about that. This is not the 6'3", 6'4" Des Bryant specimen type. His ability to get to full speed, what do you think that means, Adam, in terms and the way Roethlisberger reads him? How much does that mean?
Well, I think I heard it a couple times talked about last week. Is that one of the skills he has that's not talked about very much is how quickly he's able to tuck the ball and go and pick up yardage after the catch. Obviously he has elite receiver skills in terms of getting open, getting the ball, and especially being on the same page with Roethlisberger and being his favorite target. But a lot of what makes Antonio Brown dangerous, and trust me, I know because he was my first overall pick in the fantasy draft.
and how did he do for you?
Oh, I was much maligned for making that pick early on because everybody thought I should take a running back, but he scored more than all the running backs. So I'm feeling pretty good about that pick today.
Savvy, very savvy.
But yeah, I mean, I think that's what makes Antonio Brown go from being a good and very good receiver to the most elite receiver in the game is that those yards after the catch, he can rack them up just because he tucks the ball and goes and doesn't give the defense time to react to the play and is a step ahead in that regard on every catch he makes.
Because, I mean, I think idealistically, if you're a defense, you'd like to go head up on him and jam him at the line of scrimmage. But and the Steelers make the adjustment right away. What they'll do is they'll put him in motion after that. When he's in motion, he gets to high speed unbelievably. And now, as a punt returner, I mean, he's been tremendous. Pac-Man Jones, one of the best going, but they've taken him off punt returns. I mean, when you look at the judgment that Antonio Brown has on punt returns. I marvel at it. I don't know about you.
Well, I mean, you do have to question how he celebrates the punt returns, because sometimes he's jumping into goalposts, and that's a judgment problem, I think. But in terms of doing the things that you have to do to score, sure. Yeah, I think he has incredible judgment.
He jumps into goalposts. That's unbelievable. All right. Can you play first base? Just asking. I'm looking for any solution right now for your club.
I actually think the Pirates have done a pretty decent job in addressing first base. I mean, obviously it's not putting a lot of money in one guy, but I think the Pirates were done in last season by putting all their eggs in the Pedro Alvarez basket, and this offseason when you already have Michael Morse under contract and a contract that you probably can't move anywhere else. The best thing you can do is try to go into the off season with a platoon. And I think John Jaso and Michael Morse can be a reasonably effective first baseman in the aggregate, certainly to a greater degree than Alvarez was last season. I think I would have liked to see an Adam LaRoche or an Adam Lind type in here, but if you can't have those guys, I think the Pirates did a fairly decent job. And I think first base can be a place that they improve from where they were last season when they had Alvarez and Sean Rodriguez manning that, a vast majority of the time. And so I'm actually looking forward to seeing how that situation plays out. And I'm looking forward to see how Jason Rogers plays as well. I'm not sure how much time he'll get there. A lot of people have pointed to him, potentially playing at first base as well. But I think between those three guys, you have more options this season. That even if one fails, you still kind of have a fallback option with, say if Morse, continues to regress as he has in his 30s, you pair Rogers with Jaso, and you still have a chance to have a decent first base platoon. Whereas last season, once Alvarez went south, you didn't really have a lot of options. So, I'm kind of intrigued by the first base situation.
Look, I was trying to get you a raise. I was thinking of your long-term interests, trying to get you a little more green, okay, a little paper.
Yeah.
A little paper. I mean, it's what the minimum salary is $450. I mean, I figured
that'd be a little bit of a raise, yeah.
I think
it would be nice.
I was just trying. I was trying to be your advocate.
Well, I appreciate it.
Adam, Happy New Year. It's always great hearing from you. Thanks so much for everything.
You as well, Steve.
Thanks.